into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app and use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Welcome in. I'm Jay Zawaski with Greg Boysen and Mario Tirabassi. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see we have a special guest, but we're going to save it until we tell you to smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel as well. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're subscribed or following us wherever you get your podcasts, and we would greatly appreciate that. Hope everybody's staying warm and safe in this winter weather. We've got the World Junior Championships beginning on Monday, and with that in mind, we wanted to get our buddy, who I called off the air, the GOAT, and he cringed. It's our buddy Peters from Flo Hockey. What's up, Chris? Thanks for doing this, man.
Hey, Jay, it's great to be with you guys. Always a pleasure. And yeah, this is about as good as it gets for me. This is my favorite time of year. So and it's not just the holidays, it's World Juniors. It does not get better than this.
No, it's an awesome time to be around. And we've got our YouTube poll going, as we always do during the shows here. And our question today is, what makes you most excited about the World Junior Championships? Is it seeing Blackhawks prospects rooting for your home country, or seeing Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli? So make sure you vote in that poll, and we'll update it as the show goes on. So let's just start with the tournament at large here, Chris. And we're looking at Canada's roster, headlined by those two guys, Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli, but also 4 Chicago Blackhawks prospects. As I look at the previews, I've read all your work. I've read some work of Les Goated. And it just seems really unlikely that Canada is not going to win the gold here. I know they've got to play the games and all those things, but man, Canada just seems beyond loaded this year.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much are every year, right? You know, they've got the deepest player pool to select from. They've got the junior hockey tradition in that country. The World Juniors is a national event in such a significant way in Canada. But I mean, you look up and down their lineup, they're well balanced. They have good speed, they have good size, they have guys that can defend, they have physical players, they have a little bit of everything. The only thing they really don't have is goaltending, but that's kind of the across the board. I was just talking to some other people about, who's the goalie that you're looking forward to seeing in this tournament. I was like, I don't know. They're all kind of okay. There's nobody, there's no Spencer Knight, there's no Yaroslav Askarov, there's no Jesper Wallstedt, who we had in the summer event. So there just isn't that top quality goaltending. But in the end, that may not matter as much. I think basically, I'm from Chicago. I grew up a Bears fan, so I'm very familiar with managing games, quarterbacks managing games back in the day. Maybe not as much right now, but back in the day, where it's just like, hey, Shane Matthews is here, he's got to manage a game. So that's kind of what Canada's goalies have to be. They have to don't make the huge mistake. Don't do something stupid. Don't beat yourself. Just make the saves that you're supposed to make, and then they're going to be fine. But you look up another lineup: Shane Wright, Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, Logan Stankoven, who was the CHL Player of the Year. They have 3 guys that played in the NHL this season, in Wright, Dylan Gunther, and Brant Clark. They've got so much talent up and down their lineup that, like you look at a guy like Kevin Korchinski, the Blackhawks prospect, and I know we'll talk about all those guys, but if he's on your third pairing, that just shows how good your team is, because he is an excellent player and he's having a tremendous season. And I think if he's not as old as some of the other guys on the team, so that might be why he's a little bit further down the lineup, but that's how good this team is.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see the Canadian team, just because it is so loaded, and there is so many major storylines for the Blackhawks. Not only the guys they have, but the guys they could have in the future. We've talked Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli so much this season. Is there anything that either of them have to prove in this tournament? Because this is an opportunity for them to play on the most talented team that they're going to play on this year, especially for Bedard, and then play against probably the highest level of talent they're going to all this season, going into their draft year. Is there anything that either of these guys can prove?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that it's going to give us a chance to see them in the same environment, which we don't get to see right now, because you've got Adam Fantilli playing in the NCAA, you've got Connor Bedard playing the WHL. Very different leagues, very different, levels, in terms of the competition and various things like that. So for us, it's going to give us a chance to see both of them in a significant role on the team. The fact that both of them are in the top 6 is really impressive. I mean, Bedard we knew would be. Fantilli, you know, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have as much of that same pedigree that Bedard does, at least within the Canadian system, because he's only played the under 18 World Championship and stuff like that. So, but Fantilli is, you know, he's got a chance now to kind of prove himself and say, hey, the gap is really not that far. And the thing about him is he's big, he's fast, he's strong. He is absolutely just a top quality center, but he's going to be on the wing. Both of them are going to play wing. They're not going to be playing their natural positions, which should open them up for offense. And so I think that that's going to be very, very good to see both of those guys. Like, what can they do offensively? In terms of what they have to prove, I mean, they just have to be themselves. I think, Connor Bedard, we expect him to score goals. Adam Fantilli, we expect him to play a powerful game with speed and be a big time player on their second line. And we expect him to produce as well. Canada shouldn't have a ton of humongous tests. They do have the tougher of the 2 brackets because they've got Czechia and Sweden on their side. So they're going to have a couple of more difficult pre-tournament games. I think Czechia very well could be one of the top teams there is. So I'm really excited to see kind of where both of them stand. But more than anything, this just gives us a look at them side by side. One of the things that I want to point to is that back in, I think it was the 2013 World Juniors, Jonathan Drouin and Nathan McKinnon both played for Team Canada. They ended up in 4th line roles. They were way down the lineup. It was the lockout year. So there were a lot of NHL players that were on the World Junior team, and they didn't have the best World Juniors. Like, it wasn't that great. So if neither of them have an amazing tournament, I don't think it's really going to significantly hinder their draft status. What it will do is it's going to shift the narrative over the course of the season. Like, are they as good as we say they are? Are they, is Adam Fantilli better than Connor Bedard if he has more goals or if he has more points? Basically, this is a data point in a long season. We still have half a season to go after this, so there's plenty more to get to.
Well, let me ask you, let's move to that topic real quick, the Bedard Fantilli thing. Since we're talking about Team Canada, and that those are the 2 guys on everybody's mind in Chicago. I think last time we spoke, we asked, is there a chance that Fantilli surpasses Bedard in draft status? And I believe your response at the time was very unlikely. Has that gap narrowed at all since we spoke, before the season began, or is it kind of remaining status quo? Because look, Bedard isn't slowing down. He's still putting up huge numbers at a huge pace. And Fantilli's what everybody thought he was going to be. But has anything happened to narrow that gap at all?
I mean, I do think it's narrowed to a certain extent, mainly because of how well Fantilli has played. It has nothing to do with Connor Bedard and everything to do with Adam Fantilli and how exceptional he's been at the collegiate level. I mean, he started the season with his hair on fire, scoring at a points per game rate over 2, and that's cooled off a little bit. He got sick at one point. He missed a weekend, and then his production slowed. Then he missed another weekend because he was at Team Canada's camp. So in the end, his raw points might not be as high at the collegiate level, but he is a number 1 center dominating on a team that is, has national championship aspirations. So he's basically doing the same things that Jack Eichel did when he was with Boston University in his draft year. And we just don't get those top end guys as much, as frequently at the college level, because a lot of them are, younger and they get drafted before they go to college. But, to see that what he has done, he has definitely narrowed the gap. I mean, the other thing too is that, they're 2 different players in so many ways, whereas Fantilli is bigger, faster, and stronger. Normally, that's going to say, yeah, that's the better player, like in most sports, right? That's the better athlete. That's the better, the more easily projectable player. But Connor Bedard scores goals at an incredible level, that he scores at a generational level in terms of his goal scoring ability. And he's going to be on Canada's top line. He's going to play with Shane Wright. He's probably going to put up a ton of goals in this tournament. We're going to say, wow, well, clearly the gap is significant. But I can tell you from talking to NHL scouts, at various points of this season, they said, maybe there's more of a discussion if we came down to it. I still think that because Bedard's goal scoring is at such a level that it's one of the hardest things that you can do. That is why I still think he's going to continue to be ahead of Fantilli. But what Fantilli does is pretty much everything else you want, and then he also scores on top of it. So he might be the more complete package of a player, But Connor Bedard does the one thing that helps win you games more than anything else, better than anyone else, and does it at a level that's similar to those guys of years past, where we're just like, looking at Alex Ovechkin and the way that he scores goals, or looking at Austin Matthews and the way that he scores goals, and we're saying this kid is doing it at the same age, and it might even be doing it at a rate better than those guys do. And he's also young for the draft year too. There's a big age gap between these two players, even though they're in the same draft eligibility. So those are all the factors that you have to put into play that create this gap or lack of gap between the two.
In your mind, if they're drafted, I mean, they're going to be drafted probably 1 and 2 this year in whatever order. Do you see them both beginning their careers in the NHL next season?
I do. I think for sure Bedard. The one that is really interesting is that I'm pretty sure that Adam Fantilli is not ruling out the possibility of going for a second collegiate season. Luke Hughes is at Michigan right now, took a second year, number 4 overall draft pick, and he had one of the best freshman seasons by a defenseman in like 30 years, and he still didn't come out. Cale Makar spent a second year in college hockey, won the Hobie Baker. So there is Fantilli is more physically ready than both of those players to play in the NHL. His speed and all the different things that he can do, I think he's closer, but a lot of players are not taking that rush approach right now, because we've seen Jack Hughes go into the NHL and struggle out the gates. We've seen Alexi Lafreniere and Capo Caco still trying to rediscover their game. Owen Power took the extra year after going number 1 overall. There's nothing that says you can't take that beat and take that, arrive at the NHL ready to make an impact, as opposed to just being part of the team. I think like Shane Wright probably should have started the year back at the OHL. Now they're kind of in this limbo where he's going to play at the World Juniors, and then maybe he'll go back to Seattle. Maybe he'll go back to junior. We don't really know. But I think that more and more teams are becoming increasingly comfortable with letting players go back for an extra year, especially rebuilding teams where they're like, we're not ready to compete yet. We don't have an environment to bring this player into that's going to allow them to thrive. So those are the decisions that are being made. I think that there's less pressure. There's always pressure for those players to come in and play right away, but I think it's decreased because we've seen the success of players that waited that extra year. That Adam Fox comes in, he wins a Norris Trophy 2 years out of college. Same thing, Cale Makar, Calder Trophy, all these different things. Quinn Hughes took the extra year too. All of those guys had much more success than the players that just immediately went back in there, and I think that that's what a lot of teams are saying. Hey, maybe that's what we should do too.
Makes me a little itchy to think about if the Blackhawks do get first overall and they do get Connor Bedard, and we don't get to play with that new toy right away.
Well, I think Bedard more than likely would be an immediate NHL player.
Sure.
Yeah, it seems like, what does he have left to accomplish at the WHL level at this point? And he can't play in the AHL, so
Right, exactly. I mean, that's a good point.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the guys that are already drafted by the Blackhawks, and how impressive is it for the Blackhawks prospect pool to have 3 defensemen on Team Canada right now in Korchinski, Allen, and Del Mastro, and how excited should Blackhawks fans be about that trio?
Well, I think they should be really excited. I think that the fact that those guys are all part of Canada's D-Corps and will play prominent roles is pretty special. You've got, Ethan Del Mastro is probably going to be on their top pairing, which this is a guy that has taken so many steps as a player in the last couple of years. And he was one of those guys that was negatively impacted by the OHL shutdown. And then he comes back and all of a sudden he's a star in the OHL. And he's getting better and better. He's part of the Canadian team last year. So to have a guy playing that prominently is going to be huge. And they're going to, as of right now, it looks like he and Olin Zellweger, who's a Ducks prospect who was on the team last year as well, will be the top pairing. Then you've got, Nolan Allen, his development has been pretty much on track. Like his numbers have gone up offensively, but he's still that big physical shutdown defenseman that, is kind of a bit of a throwback. That was a pick that I've been on the record saying I thought it was a little early for him. I didn't necessarily think that's the kind of guy that you pick in the first round anymore. But I think that in general, his development is really coming a long way. And you still need size on the back end. You still need guys that can play at the net front, guys that'll play physical and do a lot of different things for you. So that's key as well. We'll see exactly where he ends up in the lineup. He's kind of moved up and down between the top four and even be, rotated in as the extra guy last time. I don't think Canada is going to necessarily be married to their D pairings for the entire tournament because they have, basically 7 guys that can play. But that's good too. Meanwhile, the guy that I'm most excited to see in this setting and a player that one thing that you have to consider with Kevin Korchinski, only 4 players that have multiple years of eligibility left at the WJC are on this team. The rest are 19-year-olds. So making it as an 18-year-old is a pretty significant accomplishment, especially in a position of such importance as defense. And I think that Canada has clearly structured their D core where they have a big shutdown guy, and then they have a dynamic skill player on each of their D pairings. And Korchinski is the dynamic skill player currently. He's been slotted with Jack Mateer so far on the 3rd pairing. But, this is a guy that moves pucks extremely well. He plays the style that's going to allow Canada to maximize the skill of their forwards because he's going to get the pucks up the ice quickly. He'll be engaged offensively. I'm sure he'll have decent numbers, even if he doesn't have the big minutes compared to some of the other guys. But he's also a guy that can come back to this event next season. And it's a great opportunity for him to kind of show where he's at in terms of his development. But I mean, to have 3 guys on Canada, and Canada, obviously the deepest team, the hardest team to make, it's really good. The one thing I'll say is that I say this all the time about the World Junior Championship is, prospects are drafted for what they can do later. The World Junior Championship is about what you can do right now. And that is to see, that means that these guys are at a level that's pretty high at this stage of their development. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing if you're the Blackhawks and watching these guys and to see the opportunity that's in front of them. If they win the tournament, they've got that championship experience, they've got that feather in their cap. And it's not going to be easy, but I'm really excited to see what all of them end up doing, because I think that this is going to be, defense has been a point of focus in these last few drafts of making sure that you get the right kind of players in there. And then you also had, Sam Rinzel have a pretty solid showing at the World Junior A Challenge recently. Not in the mix for Team USA for the World Juniors, but he's one of those raw kind of, it's going to take some time prospects. Whereas you've got these guys that are a lot closer to being ready.
So we spend a lot of time in our post-game shows thinking about the future because every game in the present is absolutely identical. So we got to be thinking about the future. And, as people who are maybe a little bit more resistant to the rebuild than others, they say, this team doesn't have that next generational player on it. And I think if we were to hesitate and challenge that, we could say that Kevin Korchinski, not that he's going to be the next Cale Makar, Duncan Keith, or whatever, but it doesn't seem terribly far-fetched based on what we've seen so far and on his pedigree and the numbers he's putting up, that Korchinski could project to be a future number 1 all-star type defenseman. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it's certainly possible. I think that he's got all the tools, like the way that he's played this season, he's taken a step, that's all you can kind of ask for. He's still at a very early stage in his development. I mean, this draft plus 1 season is still, for most players, really early. Like, I don't see Kevin Korchinski on the team next season, and I don't think that he should be, especially not in this time where you're still transitioning towards, being more competitive. And so that's that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a really good thing, because now he's going to continue to have that time to develop those skills that are going to be what he needs to be at the NHL level. But I mean, he plays the modern style of NHL hockey. He's got great skating ability. He can move pucks extremely well. He's got a good shot from the back end. He's engaged more offensively. We're seeing more and more defensemen jump up into plays and being, part of the attack. And that's going to be what he is. I think that he doesn't project comfortably as a number 1, but he definitely has upside and ceiling that says, hey, if all things go, if in the ideal world, if everything goes right, we've got a guy that's a number one, number two, top pairing defenseman that has an opportunity to be a key to our offense on our top power play, on all these different things that you can do. But I think in general, it's still very early in the process to kind of suss out exactly where he's going to fit depth chart wise. But he was a top end pick for the reason. He was picked very early for a reason. And there were a lot of teams that were really keen to draft him and wanted him. And it just went a little bit differently.
To you, just real quick. Sorry, Mario. Is he, if you're ranking Hawks prospects, do you have Korchinski number one?
I think I probably would right now. I still have a lot of time. Like, I still think Lukas Reichel is going to be a very important player in the grand scheme of things. I think he has the capability to be a core guy. Frank Nazar, if he wasn't injured, I actually had Nazar ahead of Korchinski on my draft rankings going into the draft, and Nazar hasn't played this year, so it's really impossible to say whether or not I would still feel that way. He certainly would have been part of Team USA if he were healthy. But I would say that for me, Korchinski, in terms of his overall ceiling and upside, to me, he's the most important prospect in the system right now.
Wanted to ask about the other Blackhawks prospect on Canada, Colton Dach. It was kind of a surprise that he was.
I think we lost Mario there for a second. I think he was saying that Colton Dach was a bit of a surprise to make the team. And I know he was probably going to mention Ryan Green, who had a really good camp for Canada and then was not able to and did not make the team. So what are your thoughts on Dach and Green?
Yeah. So Colton Dach, he's got a chance to play down their lineup. He's versatile. He's outplayed a number of guys that that really had an opportunity to be a part of this team. The fact that there are high end first round draft picks that did not make this team, it just shows kind of where he's at in his development. So I think it's great for him. It's a great opportunity. He might be their 13th forward. He might be on their fourth line. It's kind of up in the air at this point. Either way, being part of this team says a lot about where he's at in his development, and then he's had a really good season, which he has. As for Ryan Green, I had been talking, to a lot of people around college hockey, just like once Ryan Green kind of everything clicked for him and he started producing, I was like, I liked him a lot in his draft year. I thought that, seeing him with Green Bay multiple times, I had a lot of time for him. Did not anticipate him to make this big of an impact this soon at Boston University. And then to be in Canada's camp as a college player, it's hard enough to make it. And then he almost made it. Like, he was very close. He had a tremendous camp. There were rave reviews about him. And I think it was just that he had to do something otherworldly to make that team because they had their group set and they had the size and they had all the different things. But the fact that he was right on the cusp is a great development for a guy that played in the USHL last year, is just starting college hockey. He is well on his way to being a very good, kind of mid-tier. He's never going to be an elite prospect. He's never going to be one of those guys that you look at as a star player. But if he's a mid-tier prospect that's going to play down your lineup, that's still a really valuable piece. You want NHL players, right? You want guys that you think can play for you. I think Ryan Green is proving that he is on an NHL track right now.
It's awesome. Yeah, I kicked the cord out of my microphone, but yeah, that was essentially what I was going to ask about. Is Ryan Green is not wasn't someone who was one of the all-star showcase prospects, but for him to have that impact, I think is really encouraging to see. Just being invited to Canada for the World Junior Camp, like that, you're one of the best prospects out there in the eyes of those decision makers. So that's a big deal. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's, again, it's 1 point too. It's not, and if anybody has a bad World Juniors or anything, there's so many guys that have had bad World Junior championships that turned out into NHL superstars, and guys that had great World Juniors that we never heard from again. So, it's amazing. This event gets so much focus put on it, but it is a great measuring stick for a lot of these players and to see where they're at. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Well, I guess we ran our poll. Are you excited to see the Hawks prospects, Bedard and Fantilli, or root for your home team? 0% of the vote going to rooting for your home team.
Wow. No patriotism anymore.
Just not. 62% seeing Hawks prospects, 38% seeing Bedard and Fantilli, but I suppose we should discuss Team USA a little bit here because that's probably who, I don't know, it's who I'm going to be rooting for. So yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on Team USA. Reading some previews, the one advantage they seem to have over Canada is speed. They're a faster team than Canada. Would you agree with that?
They may be. Like, I think they're gonna. The difference is when I say speed, I think it's their ability to play fast. So it's more like the puck movement, because you look actually up and down their lineup. They don't have necessarily the fastest skaters. Their top line is very fast. Logan Cooley's an elite skater. You got their decor is all very good puck movers. But they're going to be wanting to play fast in transition, which is more the puck moves faster than most people can skate. So that's how you play fast, is you have effective puck movement. And that the US has a very small decor. They only have one defenseman that's 6'2" or taller. Canada has only one that is 6'2" or is shorter than 6'2". So it's just a real dichotomy of styles. And so it's going to be really interesting to see those two different teams kind of playing against each other, if we do get a chance to see that, because it's differing philosophies. But this U.S. team, like the important thing is that they're going to move pucks extremely well. They have guys that can score. They have 4 lines that can score. They have 3D pairings that are all going to move the puck extremely well. Their power play looks pretty solid. They don't have great goaltending. We don't know. I mean, that doesn't mean that Caden Mbarico or Trey Augustine can't have a great tournament and give them a chance. It's just we can't comfortably predict that, like we could when it was Spencer Knight, who shut out Canada in a gold medal game, which is, a pretty impressive accomplishment. But that's basically, the U.S. is going to have to prove that they can play fast, that they can beat Canada with their speed, and that they can, be a puck possession team. Rand Pecknold is the head coach from Quinnipiac, and Quinnipiac is a possession team. Now, they also play in the ECAC, and they've been a dominant team in the ECAC, which has been up and down as a conference over the last couple of years. Going to the World Juniors is a lot different, and playing against Canada is a lot different than playing against Harvard. So, it's going to be a real interesting kind of process for the U.S. They don't have a lot of experience on their coaching staff, but they do have a lot of experience on their team. 8 returning players from last year's team. So I think that they'll definitely be worth watching. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. Luke Hughes is just a superstar prospect, as is Logan Cooley. And those guys are going to be really important for Team USA. And if they're going to have a chance to win, those two guys have to be driving the bus.
Well, obviously, U.S. and Canada gets all the attention here in North America, but the 5th prospect for the Blackhawks playing is Viktor Stjernborg with Sweden. And he's kind of a forgotten, I don't want to say forgotten draft prospect, but an overlooked one. He was a later round pick. If you look at his stats, they're not blowing anybody off the page. But again, it's a product of a teenager playing in Sweden's top league. You're just not going to get a ton of opportunity. But he's Sweden's captain, and he's centering their top line. Like, what can we look for in Viktor Stjernborg?
He's a really interesting player in so many different ways. I think he's so effort based. Like his work ethic is really high. He doesn't have that super high end offensive ability, but he's effective. His work ethic, you notice him. He plays physical. He plays mean. He can be a thorn in the side of his opponents. He can be a little bit of a pest out there. So those are different things that he can do that really help a team win. Sweden as a whole, they don't have a really strong decor right now, so their forwards are going to be hugely important. So his opportunity, he's kind of playing on the top. Like, I think their lines are kind of in flux. Like, I think in terms of the minutes, he might not be on the line that ends up playing the most minutes, but it could happen. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see, because I think they've got a lot of talent at their forward group, but he's that heart and soul player that a lot of teams hope to have at these kinds of tournaments, because you can trust them. You know what you're going to get out of them. They're predictable in all the best possible ways. And then, he's obviously going to be playing a leadership role. He's going to be an important player. He has World Junior experience. So, I mean, all of those things are important. And he's not necessarily a guy that you're going to get super excited about as like, he's going to make every highlight reel and he's going to be, super entertaining. He's just going to be effective. And I think that's, what Sweden needs him to be. And that's what he will be. And ultimately, if he makes the NHL as well.
Sounds like a prototypical Kyle Davison type player. That's the kind of guy that
just a guy, a good dude.
But the work ethic, that seems very important to the type of team Kyle Davidson has been building. So he fits in very well.
Yeah. Good culture guy, good guy that kind of leads by example for sure.
Like to hear that. Do want to ask about two players who are eligible for this year's draft, both American, one that's going to be playing at the tournament and one that isn't. My Badgers love affair for Charlie Stramel is strong, so I want to get your opinion on him. But I also want to ask about Team USA not having Will Smith as part of the lineup for this tournament.
Yeah, so I'll start with Stramel to scratch the Badgers' itch there, and he basically, he was on the bubble to make this team. Like, he was not a guarantee to make it. He was a returning player, but his first half of the season was only okay. He hasn't necessarily produced at the level that I think a lot of people expected, and then there were some games where he just didn't impact the game enough to notice him. However, through the first two pre-tournament games, he's been one of Team USA's most consistent players. He's used his size, he's used his physicality, and he scored a couple of goals as well. So he's probably going to be the fourth line center for this team. He's probably going to play, manage minutes. He's going to be on the PK and do different things like that. But if he can get scoring pop from that bottom, and if he can play heavy and be strong and hard to play against, that's what Team USA needs him to be. Ultimately, if you're going to draft him in the first round, you're expecting him to be a top 6 player. You're expecting him to be a goal scorer. The question is he a center? Is he a wing? He plays center naturally. You'd love to have a 6'3", 215 center, and that can skate. And, but ultimately it's, does he drive play enough to be a center? That's going to be the big question. And thus far at the World Juniors, he doesn't necessarily have to be a play driver. He just needs to be an effective two-way center, which I think he will be. And then to answer your question about Will Smith, I actually think so. He got sick in camp, which I think, ultimately impacted whether or not he was going to make the team. I think he was also on the bubble based on what I've heard, is that they weren't necessarily certain they wanted to bring, too many underage players. But the thing is I think that this US team could have absolutely used him. I think that if he was going to be able to be healthy, that they should have given him every opportunity to make the team, because to me, this team lacks a little bit of enough of the dynamic element, and Will Smith is as dynamic as you can get. I mean, he has vision, he has skating ability. He's been doing a lot better at playing in the interior. He's been doing, he's not a physical specimen, which, he's basically 6 foot, kind of lanky, needs to get stronger, and that'll help him play to the interior better. But he's incredible puck skills, elite vision, understands how to create offense, and he's scoring it, over 2 points a game at the national team program, which is something that I think only Jack Hughes has done. And so that's the kind of thing. So I have Will Smith right on the cusp of the fifth overall. I think he's in that lottery range. I don't necessarily know. You look at the Blackhawks, let's say, if we're just talking about the Hawks, and you say, well, does he fit with the style that they want to have? Could he ultimately be the poor man's Patrick Kane, when the time does come for Kane to be gone, but and I think that there's a possibility there, but I think you're hoping more like, hey, maybe it's Adam Fantilli, maybe it's Connor Bedard, you're hoping maybe it's Leo Carlsson with his size, and those are the different guys that and Leo Carlsson will be in this tournament playing for Sweden as well. So great draft year, awesome draft year for the tournament in general. Even though we won't have Russia and Matvei Michkov to round it all out. But in general, I think Will Smith, to me, is one of the more exciting players in this draft. He's one of the more entertaining players in the draft, and he's also been on a tremendous developmental trajectory since last season. He's so much better now than he was at this point last year. It's absolutely off the charts, and that's a big part of my projection of having him so high in the draft.
Chris, you've been so generous with your time. I just want to get one more from you before we let you go here. You mentioned Carlson. You mentioned Will Smith. We already talked about Bedard, Fantilli. Give us 2 or 3 guys real quick, maybe to keep an eye on that are maybe off the radar for some people, but maybe not even necessarily, a lottery pick. Maybe if you think they are cool, but just a player or 2 or 3 to keep an eye on as the tournament goes on.
Yeah, Slovakia is going to be a team to watch with draft eligibles. They've got Dalibor Dvorsky, who's, kind of hovered around the top 10. I think he's going to be a guy to watch. And if he's not good in this tournament, Slovakia is going to have a really hard time to compete. But also another guy that is having a tremendous draft season in the WHL is Samuel Hanzik, and he's starting to trend well into the first round and maybe up into the top 20 with his play so far this season. He's a 6'3" player. He's got size, he's got skill. He played in this tournament over the summer. You barely would have noticed him, and now he's been an outstanding player at the WHL level. So Slovakia is going to be a team to watch for draft-eligible players. Also, another guy to keep an eye on, Edward Shala, who's playing for Czechia. He is playing in the Czech Pro League right now. He doesn't get, his numbers don't jump out at you because he's playing professionally. But he, in international play, he's been very good. He was outstanding at the last Under-18 World Championship. He's another guy that's kind of hovering around the top 10, top 15 range of the draft. And so this is, if you're looking for this tournament and you want to care about draft prospects and the guys that you're hoping that maybe Chicago can draft, it's a tremendous year to watch this tournament, because there's the top tier of the draft is here. The next tier is here, in a lot of ways as well. And there's just, there's plenty of different players to keep an eye on. And one last guy, before I get out of here with that, David Reinbacher, defenseman for Austria. Austria is going to get pumped at this tournament. It's not going to be a good time for him, but he had among defensemen in the Swiss National League. So he's playing at the top Swiss pro level. He has already set the record for points by a draft eligible defenseman in that league. And draft eligible defensemen who play in that league, Roman Josi. So he did not have as many points at the same age as David Reinbacher. And Reinbacher is a 6'2" right shot defenseman with mobility. Not bad. Not bad. I hear teams like those kinds of guys.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So yeah, so keep an eye on him.
Chris, can we do one more? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I don't care.
People asking in the chat about Lukas Reichel, including Gunzo saying, isn't it more likely Reichel is not a top 6 NHL player? I know you're bullish on Lukas Reichel. Can you set Blackhawks fans' minds at ease on Lukas Reichel, or try to anyway?
Well, I think it's hard because I think it's the timing for Lukas. I feel like situationally, this was not the right time to have a player like him. Honestly, like to develop him, like because in the perfect world, he'd be able to play at the NHL level right now, right? Like he'd be ready. You take a guy out of Europe, you say, okay, well, we're going to put you right in the AHL. Can we develop you? Like it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that. So, I still think that his skill level, his hockey intelligence, his competitiveness, all those different things allow him to still have the chance to play top 6. He's still very young. There's still time. It's not way too early to give up on him. I think fans are way too quick to give up on players before, if they don't do it right away. But as we've seen in more recent years, how hard it is to play in the NHL at a young age, where even the best top draft picks are struggling. And we just talked about earlier about guys that had that extra year or that more time in Europe, like those are the types of things that I think he potentially could have benefited from. But you look at him, he's over a point per game in the AHL right now at 20 years old. That is not an easy thing to do. And guys that have that level of production at that young age tend to trend favorably towards, top 6 level players. I mean, at that age in the or in the AHL, that is a very good point total. So I still like him a lot. I think that, the problem is that by the time that he's ready to potentially make an impact, the Blackhawks might not have the team to put him in the best position to succeed. He's still probably a year or two away from, being at the top of his game. And once he's there, are the Blackhawks going to have a spot for him to do that and to be that without, the team not having puck possession, the team not maybe, giving up a lot of goals. Those, the pain is still happening. And I know, and that, believe I grew up a Blackhawks fan. I was there for the dark ages. I know exactly, how this feels and where it is right now. But I do think that the only solace at this point is patience, because those guys are starting to come, and I think the Blackhawks have a pretty solid rebuild plan and a pretty solid rebuild package started, and I think Lukas Reichel is part of it. So that's my 2 cents on him.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks for staying 10 minutes longer than I asked you to before we started. We appreciate it. Make sure you're following Chris on Twitter at Chris M. Peters. Now's the time. Now is when he's in demand. But, Chris, we'll be leaning on you a lot over the next few months, especially this summer. So we always appreciate you being available for us, man. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Always great to talk to some Chicago guys, and looking forward to getting out to the tournament. So thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care, Chris. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
That's Chris Peters, the GOAT. He is the damn GOAT. And Greg's going to tell you about the goat of sunglasses. Not sunglasses.
Yes. Not sunglasses for goats, but the greatest sunglasses money can buy.
They could be.
And those, well, they could be. Who am I to tell you? I'm not sunglass gatekeeping. You can put your sunglasses on anything you want. Shady Rays, they never understood why sunglasses were so expensive. So dagnummit, they went out and they changed it. And you do not have to break the bank for quality sunglasses this winter because our friends at Shady Rays have you and your precious eyeballs covered. Shady Rays are premium polarized shades featuring world-class optical clarity, substantial durability, and styles catered to everyone and every lifestyle. And the best part about Shady Rays is their amazing loss and protection program, or lost and replacement program. If you break your sunglasses on day one or you lose them, they're going to send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Doesn't matter how you lost them or broke them. If it was an act of God or an act of stupidity, they'll replace them for you. Even with that strong of a protection program, they still manage to make quality that I could tell you from being a customer of theirs for the last couple of years. They are just as good, if not better, as any one of those expensive pairs on the eyeglass market these days. Shady Rays will also do something very cool. Besides making you look cool, they're going to provide 10 meals to fight hunger in America with every order placed, and they've donated over 20 million meals to date. They stand behind their product and told our team that if anyone has a problem, they will throw profit right out the giant test window at the Shady Rays factory and do whatever it takes to get right. Free returns and exchanges. You either love the shades or Shady Rays pays to ship them back. That's it. And of course, you're going to get an awesome deal for being a CHGO listener. Head over to shadyrays.com and use the promo code CHGO at checkout, and you will get 50% off any order with 2 or more pairs of sunglasses. That's buy one, get one free. You can get 2 pairs for as low as $54. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at shadyrays.com.
And while you're looking good in your Shady Rays, you can be feeling good thanks to Athletic Greens and their AG1 formula, which is designed to improve your gut health, optimize your immune system, and give you more natural energy. Who doesn't want that this time of year? In just 1 scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens that help you start or end your day right. And if you have different dietary restrictions, whether it's gluten-free or you have to be dairy-free or keto or vegan, whatever it is, AG1 can fit into that diet, and you can incorporate it into your life no matter how busy you might be, because it's just a small once-a-day habit with big benefits. Right now, it is time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's all you need. But to make it easier, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is go to athleticgreens.com/CHGO Blackhawks to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
All right, updating our poll. What part of the World Junior Championships have you most excited? 56% say seeing the Hawks prospects. 46% say seeing Bedard at 42%, 44% rather, saying seeing Bedard and Fantilli. And 0% have interest in rooting for their home country. And it's weird, fellas. Like this year, usually every year we're rooting for Canada, or for USA. But all the Hawks are on Canada. We want to see them thrive. We want to see Bedard and Fantilli do well, or Bantilli, as I was about to call them.
Bantilli.
It is going to be kind of a weird World Juniors to watch, because I might find myself rooting for Canada a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. The best outcome of this World Juniors would be somehow, I don't know if it's possible with the brackets, but somehow if Canada could play Sweden in the gold medal final, like that would be great. I'd love to
go Victor Stjernborg.
I'd love to watch that. But yeah, I mean, I think this at this point, the most interest for Blackhawks fans is on Team Canada, because it's the 4 prospects that they have there, and then it's Connor Bedard and Adam Fantilli. Like you're looking at 5, maybe 6 players every game that you're paying attention to. Like as Blackhawks fans, like that's the spotlight right there. So yeah, I mean, you know, if Nazar was playing in this tournament, I'd be waving the big red, white, and blue flag. You know, go USA. But you know, I might get some leaves, get some maple leaves, and stick them to a shirt and be a Canada fan for a night.
There you go.
Well, the good news, if whether you want to see the Hawks prospects or Bedard and Fantilli, whether you want to do both, they're all going to be in the same game, except for one guy. So you know, one-stop shopping pretty much to accomplish both of those goals. But it should be a good tournament. Canada, obviously, the overwhelming favorite, as they kind of sort of are every year, except you know when USA has a loaded team like they've had in the past. So, you know, it'll be fun to see if Canada, you know, trucks through the preliminary round and then faces a defensive responsible team, maybe a Slovakia, maybe a Finland. Finland loves pulling off upsets in international play. So it'll be fun to see, you know, everybody pretty much is giving them the gold medal already just based on the roster. And it's hard not to argue with that, but there's some really talented teams out there that have something to say for it. So, you know, I would not be upset to see an upset maybe in a semifinal or something like that. It'd be fun. I always like chaos at these sorts of events.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Chris said, like, you know, usually if there's a standout goalie on one of these teams, they're able to maybe steal a few games in the tournament for a team that may or may not be, you know, less talented. But it kind of seems like everyone's on relatively even playing levels when it comes to the goaltending talent. So even if it is a poorly goaltended tournament, Canada could probably still outgun every other country there. So, you know, it still gives them that edge up front. I'm just really excited to see like just watching some of the highlights from the exhibition games. Just Connor Bedard, like, he just knows what he's about to do to all these poor schlubs that try and stop him. And I just absolutely love the confidence that he's coming into this tournament with, because he knows how good he is. And now he's going from being like the only person who can do something on the Regina Pats, a team that is just atrocious outside of him, to now being surrounded by the best other Canadian prospects that are close to his same level. And now he's like, oh, I might be the best player on a team of the best players. So the confidence level is through the roof for him. I would just love to see him just go out, put up like 15, 20 points in this tournament, keep tickling guys after he scores goals, and just say, yeah, I'm the number one freaking prospect. Like, come get me, Chicago.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to the tournament, and times out nicely with the holidays, so everybody should be able to catch some games. It's definitely going to be fun to watch. I want to kind of poll the informal poll here of our listeners. How do you feel after hearing from Chris Peters about the Blackhawks' future? Are you feeling better about the long-term outlook? You feeling worse? Feeling about the same? What did Chris do to how you're feeling about things? And Gunzo is the one who's been asking about Lukas Reichel and had a follow-up saying, is he better than Brandon Peary was at the same age? Well, at age 20, Lukas Reichel is a point-per-game player. When Brandon Peary was 20 years old, he had 43 points in 70 games. When he was 21, he had 56 points in 66 games. It took him until he was 22 to experience a nearly point-per-game season when he had 75 points in 76 games for Rockford. So, yes, I think it is safe to say that Brandon Peary, that Lukas Reichel is ahead of Brandon Peary in his development. And I just want to, I'm just sort of reading between the lines here. Lukas Reichel, as Chris said, is 20 years old and has played 13 NHL games.
Yeah.
Let's not make a call on him yet. It seems
13 NHL games, mostly in the bottom six in limited shelter roles, not giving an opportunity to be Lukas Reichel.
Yes, and not given any sort of consistent run either, where he had a bunch of games in a row trying and finding his, maybe finding comfort with a line or anything. I mean, just think about the Hawks lines this season, made up of professionals. It takes guys time to gel, and Reichel hasn't had that yet. So there's no reason to panic about Lukas Reichel. And I think we say this all the time, but I'm going to remind everybody, you can't think of prospects like Kane and Taves. That's not how it goes. Very rarely does a guy come out right away and dominate. Cole Caulfield's a good example, by the way. A guy who struggled early in Montreal and has all of a sudden figured it out. Right?
Yeah, it takes being surrounded by the right people in your development path, the right coaches, having the right opportunities at the right time. That has to line up the proper way. And you also have to be given, an opportunity to build some confidence as a young player. With the way the Blackhawks have treated some of their top prospects in the last couple of years is, oh, we drafted you in the first round, or oh, we drafted you 3rd overall or 8th overall or whatever it is. So you have to be on the fast track to being in the NHL before your 20th birthday or whatever it has to be. And they've done so, kind of stunting those guys' growth because they're thrown into situations in which, they don't have it's not conducive to building their confidence. Adam Boquist, Kirby Doc, Henry Yokiharu, like they took lumps as teenagers in the NHL that maybe were unnecessary. And you look at the way that they've handled Reichel, and you look at the way that that kind of gives you a little bit of a blueprint of how some of these guys coming up, some of these guys we talked about today, how they might be handled. Like we might not see a Kevin Korchinski at even sniffing NHL time for another 2 or 3 years. We might not see Ethan Del Mastro, Nolan Allen, Colton Dock. We might not see those guys, hovering around the NHL, being NHL ready, as the term goes, for another 2-3 years. And we talk about the team being young next year, potentially, and having roster spots open. That's where guys that are currently with the Rockford Ice Hogs have an opportunity to step up. A lot of the defensemen right now, like Isaac Phillips, who's playing with the Blackhawks right now, Alec Regula, Alex Vlasic, that's where opportunities can open up for those guys. You look at some of the college prospects this year that going into next season maybe making their pro debuts, like a Wyatt Kaiser or a Landon Slager. Like those are guys that, there's still a lot of hope for, expectations for, but they're still playing juniors. And so it's going to take some time for them to get accustomed to the pro game and get on that pro development track. And with Reichel, the other thing you have to remember with Reichel is that he was drafted out of Germany, out of the top German division as a 17, 18-year-old. After he was drafted in the first round by the Blackhawks, he played another season in the top German league as an 18, 19-year-old. So basically, since he's been 17 years old, Lukas Reichel's been playing against men. 2 years in Germany. Now this is his second season in the AHL. That is a really good thing for him. To when he does get to the NHL level, it's not a spike so much in the speed of the game, the physicality of the game. Like he's played against men for now. This is his 4th year. Like he's, as long as his feet and his hands and his brain can keep up with the pace of the game, he's going to be just fine. So I really like hearing, what Chris had to say as far as, taking the patience with him, because that's what the Blackhawks need to do. And that's all that they have time for right now. They don't only have time for these guys to grow.
Yep.
I just want to make 2 little quick points on Lukas Reichel. The Brendan Peary thing, that's not a guy I'd want to compare. You can compare stats, but it's dangerous because they're not the same player. Brendan Peary cared about one thing and one thing only: Brendan Peary's goal stats. That's it. He was not interested in passing. He was not interested in playing defense. That's why it never really worked for Brendan Peary in the NHL. He only cared about scoring goals. Lukas Reichel is light years ahead of Brendan Peary as far as being an overall complete player. Lukas Reichel will play defense. Lukas Reichel is a very good playmaker and sometimes doesn't shoot enough. He'd rather pass and pick up the assist. Not the same type of player. And even that being said, Lukas Reichel still has better numbers at this stage in his career. So that's not a great guy I compare him to. There's a lot of reasons why Peary never excelled in the NHL, and I could have a whole podcast dedicated on that. Here's a really fun analogy for Lukas Reichel's time in the NHL. Compare it to being a substitute teacher in grade school. No matter how good that substitute teacher was, They never had a chance when they walked into your classroom because they didn't know anybody. They knew they were only going to be there for 2 days. They weren't that familiar with the subject matter, so they did their best in a very temporary spot and then went back to wherever they came from. That's pretty much what Lukas Reichel has been in the NHL. He's been a substitute 4th grade teacher. Very limited time, had no chemistry with what was around him, and then went back to the AHL. So let's pump the brakes on worrying about if he's not going to be top 6. Let's get him some time. Blackhawks have nothing but time.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Agreed.
There's no doubt. It's just we gotta just hamper expectations and be patient. It's what Chris says. It's what everybody's saying. You just gotta let these guys develop and do their own thing.
And I get it. The fans are so desperate for something hopeful to cling to because the current team is so bad, but it's coming. It's coming. Focus on the kids that are in the World Juniors. Focus on the Rockford Ice Hogs and some of the players there. Don't worry so much about what this year means at the NHL level to down the road. It means nothing. Absolutely nothing to the future goals of the Blackhawks other than getting really good draft picks. That's about it.
Yep.
So I get why people are worried and stressed out that Lukas Reichel hasn't had the impact at the NHL level because they're so desperate for something positive right now. But it's okay. It's coming. Trust me.
Yeah, and we were talking about being frustrated last night with the Blackhawks and the game, and there were people today responding to us and our podcast last night saying like, why are you frustrated? It's different between not caring about the wins and losses and caring about how the team is playing. And it's frustrating the way the team's playing. It's frustrating to see Patrick Kane not be able to set up teammates for great scoring chances and have them finish those chances. It's frustrating to see Patrick Kane not being able to score on his own. It's frustrating to see, sticks snapping on open chances. And it's frustrating to see the constant copy paste games that these Blackhawks have been putting out. So that's where the frustration's coming. That's where the frustration's coming for us. It's not that we should be winning games. We know we're not going to win games.
No.
Yeah.
But we want to be seeing some productivity on the ice, executing the game plans that Luke Richardson is putting together, executing, it's great that Luke Richardson in his press conferences loves to go into the X and O's and explain what goes wrong, what they should be doing here instead of what happened. That's great. I would love for him to not have to do it so often. That's all I'm saying. I would love for him to have to stop explaining for 5 minutes why there's a breakdown, why there's a miscommunication. I would just love for once the Blackhawks to have a game where they're doing the right things, they're in the right spots, and they finish a couple chances.
Yeah, we're selfish podcasters. We want something different to talk about.
Right.
We've been talking about the same thing for 2.5 months already.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I enjoyed that show. I love talking to Chris. I'm excited for the World Juniors, and you should be too. And hockey fans, light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. And if that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code CHGO. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do, only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code CHGO. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See the show notes for details. And it is Thursday, which means it is time for the DraftKings Pick of the Week. Greg,
Yeah.
got the
Alrighty. We're gonna do one of those fun same game parlays for tonight's NHL action.
Let's win some money.
We talked to the GOAT earlier as far as hockey prospects and World Juniors goes, Chris Peters, but I'm gonna place a bet on the GOAT as far as scoring goals, or the soon-to-be GOAT, and that's Alex Ovechkin. You've heard of him. He has not scored a goal since he had his hat trick here in Chicago. He's still on 800. He's freaking due. And he and the Washington Capitals are playing at the Ottawa Senators, who the last time I checked, have really bad goaltenders and really bad defense. So Alex Ovechkin is freaking due. He's scoring at least 801 tonight. So my DraftKings pick of the week, same game parlay of Alex Ovechkin anytime goal score with the Capitals on the money line. That is for a plus 200. Bet $10, get $30 back with Ovechkin scoring a goal and the Capitals on the money line for our DraftKings pick of the week.
I love it.
I like that. I would trust that.
Yeah.
And
no pressure though, but
yeah, no pressure. You know what else you trust? It's ComEd and their energy efficiency program to help you save energy and therefore save money. And their energy efficiency program is committed to helping families do just that in the communities that they serve. ComEd offers free facility assessments that can help find energy saving opportunities, whether it's through lighting or HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes. An authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. These can be done in person or virtually, and they last approximately 2 hours. Within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that they can start working on immediately. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, projected cost, potential incentives, and simple payback. So don't wait. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy saving tips and to schedule your free facility assessment, go to comed.com/poweringbiz. That's B-I-Z. Again, comed.com/poweringbiz. And if you're ready to sign up for a facility assessment, you can call them at 855-433-2700 during normal business hours to speak with a ComEd Energy Efficiency Program representative. The other way you can get a hold of them is through email. You can email them businessee@comed.com or request an online assessment at their website, comed.com/facility assessments.
All right. Before we wrap up, going to update the poll one last time. What are you most excited about with the World Junior Championships? 54% say seeing the Hawks prospects. 42% say seeing Bedard and Fantilli. And 4% say rooting for their home country. So finally, rooting for your home country gets a vote. The tournament starts on...
That was me. I voted for it. I didn't want to get 0. I'm the patriot here.
Way to go.
You un-American jerks.
Yeah. That's true. All right, we're going to be back tomorrow night after the Hawks and Blue Jackets. We're not sure exactly how it's going to go. Greg might go to the United Center if it's not Snowmageddon or Frigid Mageddon. I don't know.
It's going to be cold.
Mario and I are going to do the show from home either way, remotely. So we'll be on after the game. Stay tuned to see in what format. Very exciting for everybody here, I'm sure.
Yeah, and if you are going to go out to the game, best of luck. I salute you, and best of luck getting there and back safely. And hey, it's the Bedard Bowl.
It is. And looking at Game Time right now, quick little plug for our friends at Game Time, $12.
Are they free? Oh, $12. Okay.
Yep.
They might actually pay you to go to that game.
Hey, I guaranteed a victory tomorrow night earlier this week, and I'm going to stand by it. This could be the Hawks' last win in a while. So, hey, if you're bored and you got a monster truck, enjoy. Either way, we'll talk to you tomorrow on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. Thanks for being with us, and make sure you smash that like button on the way out. We appreciate you.